Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The coffee table was laden with snacks and drinks, a testament to the long night ahead. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the TV screen, flickering with vibrant colors as the game's title screen appeared.
All right, who's ready to get their butt kicked?
Mark grinned, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Emily rolled her eyes, tucking a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear.
In your dreams, Mark. I've been practicing. Oh, it's on now.
Zach chimed in, adjusting his glasses with a smirk. The newest addition to their group, Amos, sat on the edge of the couch, looking a bit uncertain. His fingers nervously drummed against the controller in his hands.
I'm not sure I even remember which button does what,
he admitted with a sheepish laugh. Don't worry, Amos, Emily reassured him, patting his shoulder. We'll go easy on you, at least for the first round. Just as Mark was about to start the game, the doorbell rang. A chorus of excited, "Billy's here!" filled the room. Mark jumped up to answer the door, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste. The door swung open to reveal Billy, standing there with a raised eyebrow and an amused expression. Whoa, easy there, Mark. The game's not going anywhere. Billy stepped inside, shrugging off a worn leather jacket to reveal a plain white t-shirt underneath. Dark jeans hugged his legs, and his short brown hair was slightly tousled from the wind outside. He greeted everyone with a nod and a small wave.
Hey, Billy! Glad you could make it!
Zach called out from his spot on the floor. Emily scooted over on the couch, making room. We were just about to start. Perfect timing. Billy settled onto the couch, his posture rigid and his expression neutral. Amos couldn't help but notice how different Billy seemed from the rest of the group. While the others were relaxed and joking around, Billy appeared almost uncomfortably serious. As Mark distributed controllers, a mischievous glint appeared in his eye. He exchanged a knowing look with Emily and Zach, a silent agreement passing between them. Amos, oblivious to this wordless communication, simply accepted his controller with a grateful nod. So, Billy? Mark began, his tone casual but with an undercurrent of amusement. Heard any good jokes lately? Billy's eyes narrowed slightly. You know I'm not here for jokes, Mark. Let's just play the game. Oh, come on, Emily chimed in, her voice light and teasing.
A little laughter never hurt anyone.
Billy's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, focusing intently on the character selection screen. As the game started, the room filled with the sounds of button mashing and playful trash talk. However, beneath the game's soundtrack, a current of anticipation ran through the group. Amos couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, some inside joke or shared secret. During a particularly intense battle, Zach suddenly piped up, Hey, Billy, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Billy's character on the screen faltered for a moment. Zach, I'm not interested. Because he was outstanding in his field. Zach finished with a flourish, grinning widely. A collective groan rose from the group, but Amos noticed the corner of Billy's mouth twitch ever so slightly. Encouraged by this small reaction, Emily jumped in. Okay, I've got one. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Billy's grip on the controller tightened. Emily, please, because they make up everything. This time, a small snort escaped Billy, quickly masked by a cough. The tension in the room ratcheted up a notch, and Amos found himself holding his breath, though he wasn't sure why. Mark, seizing the moment, delivered the final blow. All right, last one. What do you call a fake noodle? Billy's resolve was crumbling, a smile fighting its way onto his face. Mark, don't. An impasta. That did it. The dam broke, and Billy burst into laughter, the sound filling the room. It started as a chuckle, but quickly grew into full-bodied, uncontrollable laughter. Billy's head tipped back, eyes crinkling at the corners, body shaking with mirth. And then, something extraordinary began to happen. As Billy continued to laugh, subtle changes started to occur. At first, Amos thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. But no, Billy's features were definitely shifting. The strong jaw softened, cheekbones becoming more pronounced. The short brown hair seemed to grow, lengthening and developing a slight wave. Billy's white t-shirt, which had fit snugly before, now appeared loose, hanging off a frame that was becoming noticeably smaller and curvier. The jeans, once form-fitting, now sat low on hips that had widened subtly. Amos's jaw dropped, his controller forgotten in his lap as he watched this incredible transformation unfold before his eyes. He glanced at the others, expecting to see the same shock mirrored on their faces. Instead, he found them watching with amused anticipation, as if this were a common occurrence. As Billy's laughter finally subsided, the changes settled. Where once sat a man, there was now unmistakably a woman. She wiped tears of laughter from her eyes, her now long hair falling in waves around a face that was undeniably feminine, but still recognizably Billy. "Oh, you guys," she said, her voice higher and softer than before.
I can't believe I fell for that again.
Amos sputtered, looking wildly between Billy and the others. "What? How? I don't understand." Billy turned to him, a gentle smile on her face.
Oh, right, you're new to the group.
"Sorry, Amos, I should have warned you. This," she gestured to herself, "happens sometimes when I laugh too hard."
Don't worry, it's just me.
But you were a guy, and now you're...
A girl, yeah," Billy finished for him. "It's a bit of a long story, but basically it's a condition I've had since I was a kid. Extreme laughter triggers the change. It'll wear off in a few hours."
Amos's mind reeled, trying to process this information.
"And you're okay with this?"
Billy shrugged, adjusting her now loose t-shirt. "I've had a long time to get used to it. Plus, these guys," she nodded towards the others, "they've been incredibly supportive, even if they do take advantage sometimes to pull pranks like this." Mark grinned unrepentantly. "Come on, Billy. You have to admit, it's pretty funny." Yeah. Billy rolled her eyes, but there was no real annoyance in her tone. "Just remember, payback's a bit..." She caught herself, glancing at Amos. "Well, you know." Emily leaned forward, addressing Amos's still shocked expression. "Look, Amos, I know this is a lot to take in, but Billy's still Billy, regardless of what form she's in right now. It doesn't change who she is as a person." Zach nodded in agreement. "Yeah, man, we've all been through the initial shock, but trust me, once you get used to it, it's actually pretty cool.
I mean, how many people do you know who can literally walk a mile in both sets of shoes?"
Billy laughed at that, the sound lighter and more melodious than before.
"That's one way to put it, Zach."
Amos took a deep breath, trying to center himself.
Okay. This is definitely not what I expected when I joined game night. But if you're all cool with it, then I guess I can try to be too."
Billy's face lit up with a grateful smile.
"Thanks, Amos. That means a lot. And hey, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm an open book." "Just maybe not right now," Mark interjected, waving his controller. "We've still got a game to finish, and I was totally winning before all this laughter business."
Emily scoffed. "In your dreams, Mark! Billy's change didn't mess with my skills." Just like that, the tension in the room dissipated. As they turned their attention back to the game, Amos found himself marveling at how quickly they all adapted to the situation. Billy, now with longer hair and more delicate features, picked up her controller with the same competitive glint in her eye. As the night wore on, Amos found himself relaxing more and more. The initial shock gave way to curiosity, and he found himself stealing glances at Billy, still amazed by the transformation. But true to the others' words, Billy's personality remained unchanged. She trash-talked with the best of them, celebrated victories with fist pumps, and groaned dramatically at defeats. During a break between games, Amos finally worked up the courage to ask some questions. "So, Billy," he began hesitantly, "how long have you been dealing with this condition?" Billy set down her drink, considering the question.
"It started when I was about 12. Scared the living daylights out of my parents the first time it happened. We went through a whole battery of tests, but no one could figure out the cause. Eventually, we just had to learn to live with it." That must have been tough, especially as a kid, Amos mused. Billy nodded. It was, for a while. Middle school's hard enough without randomly changing genders, but I was lucky. My family was supportive, and I eventually found friends who accepted me. She smiled at the others. These guys have been amazing. Mark threw an arm around Billy's shoulders. Oh, you're gonna make me blush, Bill. Billy elbowed him playfully. Don't let it go to your head. So it's always laughter that triggers it? Amos asked, his curiosity piqued. Yep, but not just any laughter. It has to be really intense, uncontrollable laughter. That's why these jokers, she gestured to her friends, like to gang up on me sometimes with their terrible jokes. Emily grinned. Hey, our jokes are hilarious, thank you very much. If you say so, Billy replied with a roll of her eyes. Anyway, that's why I try to keep a straight face most of the time. It's not that I don't have a sense of humor, I just never know when a laugh might trigger the change. Zach chimed in, which is why it's so much fun to get her to crack up. It's like a challenge. A challenge I wish you'd give up on, Billy grumbled. But there was no real heat behind her words. Amos nodded, processing this information. And it always changes you from male to female. Never the other way around? That's right, Billy confirmed. I always start as a guy, and the laughter changes me into a girl. After a few hours, I change back. The timing can vary, but it's usually around 3 to 4 hours. Fascinating, Amos murmured. Then, realizing how that might sound, he quickly added, I mean, not that you're some kind of science experiment or anything, it's just, I've never heard of anything like this before. Billy chuckled. Trust me, I get it. And you're right, it is pretty fascinating. I've participated in a few studies over the years, but so far, science is as baffled as we are.
Does it hurt? Amos asked hesitantly. Billy shook her head. Not at all. It feels a bit weird, like a full-body tingle, but there's no pain. The biggest inconvenience is dealing with clothes that suddenly don't fit right. As if to emphasize her point, Billy tugged at her loose t-shirt.
See, not exactly high fashion.
Emily piped up. Which is why we always keep some spare clothes here for Billy. Hold on, I'll grab them. She disappeared into another room and returned moments later with a small duffel bag.
Here you go, Billy. Much more flattering options in there.
Billy took the bag with a grateful smile.
Thanks, Em. I'll be right back, guys.
As Billy left to change, Mark turned to Amos.
So, what do you think? Still want to be part of our weird little group?
Amos looked around at the faces of his new friends, then glanced towards the direction Billy had gone. A slow smile spread across his face. You know what? Yeah, I do. This is definitely not what I expected, but it's kind of amazing, isn't it? Zach clapped him on the back.
Welcome to the club, man. Trust me, game nights are never boring with Billy around.
When Billy returned, she was wearing a floral blouse and jeans that fit her current form much better. She'd pulled her hair back into a ponytail, emphasizing the delicate features of her face. Much better, she said, doing a little twirl. So, are we ready to get back to the game? I've got some serious catching up to do. As they settled back into their gaming positions, Amos found himself marveling at the easy acceptance of the group. Here they were, casually returning to their video game, as if one of their friends hadn't just undergone a miraculous transformation. It was a testament to the strength of their friendship and their ability to embrace the extraordinary. The night continued, filled with laughter, friendly competition, and the occasional joke at Billy's expense, though they were careful not to trigger another change. Amos found himself relaxing more and more, the initial shock of Billy's transformation giving way to a sense of wonder and acceptance. As the hours passed, Amos noticed Billy checking her watch more frequently. Finally, during a lull in the game, she stood up. All right, guys, I think it's about time. I should be changing back soon. The others nodded in understanding. Mark paused the game, and they all turned their attention to Billy. Amos, unsure of what to expect, watched with rapt attention. Billy closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the changes began to reverse. Her hair seemed to retract, shortening back to its original length. Her features sharpened, jaw becoming more defined. The blouse and jeans she'd changed into began to look ill-fitting once again, but this time because they were too small rather than too large. Within minutes, Billy was back to his male form, looking exactly as he had when he'd first arrived earlier that evening. He opened his eyes and grinned at the group. And we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. Amos couldn't help but applaud, causing the others to laugh. Billy took an exaggerated bow. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Actually, no, I won't. I've got work tomorrow." As Billy went to change back into his original clothes, the others turned to Amos. "So, final thoughts?" Emily asked. Amos shook his head in amazement. "That was incredible. I mean, I saw it happen both ways now, and I still can hardly believe it." "Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing," Zach agreed. "But you handled it well, man. Some people freak out a lot more." "I can imagine," Amos said. "But you guys, you make it seem so normal, like it's just another quirk, like being double-jointed or something." Mark nodded. "That's kind of how we see it. Sure, it's unusual, but it's just part of who Billy is. And Billy's our friend, no matter what form he's in." When Billy returned, now back in his original outfit, he looked at Amos with a hint of uncertainty. "So, Amos, now that you've seen the full Billy experience, what's the verdict? Still want to be part of this crazy group?" Amos didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. This has been the most interesting game night I've ever had, and hey, if you guys can accept someone who randomly changes gender, I'm pretty sure you can put up with my terrible gaming skills." The room erupted in laughter and cheers. Billy's face broke into a wide, relieved smile. "Welcome to the family, Amos. Just remember, what happens in game night stays in game night." As they settled in for one last round of gaming before calling it a night, Amos felt a warm sense of belonging. He'd come here expecting a simple night of video games and maybe some new friends. Instead, he'd been introduced to something magical, something that challenged his perceptions of what was possible. But more than that, he'd been welcomed into a group that embodied the true meaning of friendship. They'd shown him that acceptance and understanding could overcome even the most unusual of circumstances. As he picked up his controller, ready to play another round, Amos knew that his life had changed in more ways than one, and he couldn't wait to see what future game nights would bring. The night wound down, the excitement of Billy's transformation giving way to the comfortable camaraderie of friends enjoying each other's company. As they played their final round, Amos found himself less focused on the game and more on the people around him. He observed the easy banter between Mark and Emily, the way Zach's eyes lit up when he pulled off a particularly impressive move, and how Billy seemed more relaxed now, allowing himself to laugh freely without the fear of another change. As the game ended, with Emily emerging victorious, much to Mark's chagrin, they began the process of cleaning up. Amos helped gather empty soda cans and chip bags, still mulling over the events of the evening. "Hey, Billy," he said as they were stuffing the last of the trash into a bag. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how do you deal with this in your day-to-day life? I mean, does it ever happen at work or in public?" Billy paused, considering the question. "It's happened a few times, yeah. I've had to get pretty good at controlling my laughter in professional settings, but I've also had to develop some, let's call them contingency plans." "What do you mean?" Amos asked, intrigued. "Well, for starters, I always carry an emergency bag with me. Change of clothes, some basic makeup, that sort of thing. I've also had to have some awkward conversations with my bosses over the years. Luckily, my current job is pretty understanding. They know about my condition, and we have protocols in place if it happens at work." Emily chimed in. "Remember that time it happened during your presentation to the board?" Billy groaned. "Don't remind me. That was a nightmare. But you know what? It actually worked out okay. The CEO was so impressed by how I handled it that I ended up getting a promotion."
"See? Silver linings," Mark said, clapping Billy on the back. Amos shook his head in amazement. That's incredible. I don't know if I could handle something like that with such grace. Trust me, Billy said with a wry smile. It wasn't always this easy. It took years of practice, a lot of therapy, and friends like these to get to this point. He gestured to the group around him. As they finished cleaning up, the conversation turned to plans for the next game night. Amos found himself being included naturally, as if he'd always been part of the group. So, same time next week?
Zach asked, adjusting his glasses. Sounds good to me, Emily replied.
Amos, you in?
Amos nodded enthusiastically. Wouldn't miss it for the world. As they said their goodbyes and headed out, Billy pulled Amos aside.
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for being so cool about everything. I know it's a lot to take in.
Amos smiled.
No need to thank me. If anything, I should be thanking you guys for trusting me enough to let me in on this. It's pretty amazing.
Billy chuckled.
Yeah, I guess it is. Just remember, like I said before, what happens in game night stays in game night. Amos finished for him. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.